Welcome back, travelers. Today I'm going to show you how to ghost a room. This is what it's called in the glitching world when you overlap a room on top of another home or various other location without it actually being attached to a harvest house or grand harvest house. Like a lot of glitches, this can be really finicky, but once you get the hang of it and understand how it works, it's a lot of fun and opens up a lot of possibilities. For this example, we're going to strictly be using hallways, but you can use any room and fireplace. It, however, doesn't seem to work with the bay windows, but that's just how I couldn't get it to work. There's always the possibility that it does, and I just wasn't doing it right. The first thing you're going to need is a spare plot. And what I mean by that is you're going to need another plot from your drop down menu that you don't plan to decorate with, or at least don't plan to move a harvest house. I'll explain why. Every single room that people float inside of another home or out in the wild of their plot is actually anchored to a home on a different plot. That's why it's called ghosting, because there is a house attached to that room. It's just in ghost form. It visibly doesn't exist. It doesn't affect your build in any way on the plot that the room is on, but you do still need a house for that room to be attached to in a particular way. It'll make a lot more sense once I explain how to do the actual glitch. Let's go with a step by step. You're going to need a harvest home, a room that you wish to have floating inside another house on a different plot, and then the spare plot on which to put the new harvest home. Once you have that spare plot, you're going to load it up on the screen, place the harvest home down, just like usual. This is where the glitch starts to happen. You're going to go into your overview menu and select the room that you plan to have ghosted onto another plot, aka inside of another home or randomly sitting outside on your plot. You're going to pick this up from the menu as if you were going to place it, but not actually click to place the room down. Instead, while holding the room on your cursor, you're going to select the drop-down menu and choose the plot that you want that room you're now holding to appear on. You should get a menu that comes up that says confirm, as if do you want to load the new plot. You want to move the screen so that that OK button is over top of the room once the room is lit with a green outline, as if it will be attachable to the harvest home, but the menu is over top of it. You're then going to click confirm and click again in quick succession. This should both load the new plot and place down the room that was on your cursor on the new plot, because it thinks it was attaching it to the harvest home on the previous plot. But it loaded so quickly that it didn't understand where it should go. But here's where the trickiness of the glitch comes in. The harvest home on that spare plot is always going to affect that floating room. So if you are going to pick up that harvest home and move it around, the floating room will also move on the other plot. And the hallway entrance will always be on that particular side. So the home has to be rotated on the spare plot in the correct direction to make the opening on the room appear where you want it to appear. Another note is that if you want to pick up the floating room, you must do it from the plot that it is sitting on. You cannot do it from the spare plot where its actual home is placed. Now, the cool thing about this is that once you get the harvest home on the spare plot where it's supposed to go so that the floating room is aligned where you want it on your main plot, You can still decorate that spare plot. You just can't move the harvest home. You can even attach another hallway, another room, or a bay window to the spare harvest home, and it won't affect the glitch. So you can still make use of that spare plot, but if you ever move that house or rotate it, that floating room will also move or rotate. You also cannot move the floating room on its own. So if you pick it up, it will go red and not allow you to place it unless you use a proper socket on the main plot. If you want to move that room, you have to utilize the harvest house on your spare plot. So it can be a little tricky to line things up because you can't see both plots at the same time, but using landmarks that are on your plot can really help. And overall, just have patience with yourself by moving the house just a little bit over time to get it aligned exactly how you want it. This does mean if you wanted, for example, one hallway on the left of your harvest house and one hallway on the right of your harvest house as little corner rooms, you would have to have two harvest homes on your spare plot side by side, both with hallways ghosted off of them to make that effect. If your spare plot is not large enough or doesn't have enough space to allow that, you'll need an additional spare plot to do the glitch again. I also realize that's a lot of all the same words in one video, so I do recommend you rewatch this as many times as you need. And of course, any questions or comments can be placed in the comments down below. If you did find it helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you feel like it, but most importantly, have a very magical day.